Women fought for equality. It was not just given to them. I want them to come here and be astonished that there was ever a time when women could not vote. I want them to be astonished that there was ever a time when women earned less than men for doing the same work. I want them to be astonished that there was ever a time when women were vastly outnumbered in the boardroom or in Congress, that there was ever a time when a woman had never sat in the Oval Office.
It sounds rather logical, always has. If a man and a woman are doing the exact same job and have similar qualifications, should they not be making the exact same amount of pay? At the moment, when you look at some of the numbers, they'll tell you that women make 79 cents for every dollar men make. Look deeper into those numbers. You'll find minority women have to work even harder and longer to make up the difference. So let us begin this discussion on National Equal Pay Day with what should be a ridiculous question, but is actually dead on point. Why are we here in 2016, an age of so-called enlightenment, and we're still talking about this because nothing's been settled? Someone's got to be to blame. Welcome in the Executive Director at the Independent Women's Forum, Sabrina Schaeffer. Sabrina, pleasure to see you again, and I'm going to start out this interview with just that. Why are we sitting here today still talking about this? Because somebody has got to be roadblocking this at every stop.
Well, look, we are talking about this because for Democrats, women are a critical voting bloc, and this is sort of candy for them. But the reality is that the faulty wage gap statistic, this idea that women only make 77 cents or 79 cents, sometimes they say 81 cents for every dollar a man makes, is grossly overstated. And it really sort of is disingenuous because it takes away from a real conversation, a constructive conversation about how we can see women's improvement in the workplace.
But why is it then, and you would say it's incorrect, that was the Census Bureau quotes right there, the median earnings of women are only 77 cents of every dollar earned by men. And if you look across the board on thousands of stories, though, Sabrina, they will tell us and they will quote women who say that they are paid less. Matter of fact, I'm just going to bring this up just because it's goofy for the conversation here, okay? Professional tennis. Roger Federer makes $731,000 for winning a tournament. Serena Williams makes $495,000. Look, I'm not saying we're all going to make that kind of money, but there is a gap here.
There is. Well, so let's back up for a minute. The numbers that the president is using and that his Democratic, friends in Congress use and that the progressive women's groups use is a comparison of averages that the Department of Labor puts out, full-time working men to full-time working women. What this number does not do is it does not account for the many variables that go into determining someone's wage. So time spent out of the workforce, time spent in the office each day, college major, all sorts of things that we use to determine how much we ought to pay somebody. Now, when you actually control for any number of those factors, we find that there is a small wage gap that persists, about 4 to 6 cents, and that can be.
I got to stop you there, unfortunately, just because we're short on time. A small wage gap, Sabrina, there shouldn't be any wage gap.
Well, that's not entirely true. We have to ask why that is happening. And it may be because women aren't, asking enough. Maybe they're not negotiating. It may be because there's discrimination, in which case we do have laws on the books to help prevent that. And IWF is actually recommending making some changes to those laws.
Is it not fair to say, though, that you're right, but part of that discrimination here is on both sides? Look, the Republicans voted down a bill, the Paycheck Fairness Act. They've done that 3 times. Hang on. They voted that down 3 times. And the Democrats, Obama's staff makes less, women versus men. Senator Mark Udall's staff makes less, women versus men. So does Nancy Pelosi's staff. This is a bipartisan issue. Is it not fair to say we're sitting here because both sides have failed to get the job done?
Well, I don't think it's really the role of government to get the job done. In fact, I would like to see government stay out of this. And a law like the Paycheck Fairness Act would be devastating to the economy. It would backfire on women by making them more costly to employ. It would do nothing to stamp out discrimination, but it would be a gift to trial lawyers. So, look, the reality is if we really want to have an honest conversation about how women can succeed in the workplace, then we ought to start by talking to our daughters, talking to young women and saying, you are going to have to make a lot of choices in your life. Some are going to be easy to make and some are going to be a little harder. Some are going to have sort of no problem trade-offs, and others down the road you may say, wow, I made that one choice, but the impact is being felt now. The reality is we can't do everything and you can't be everything to everyone.
Okay,
So
I'm going to give you that. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we only have so much time. I got 30 seconds left here. Will you not agree with me that with all this we've talked about, you're right about it, numbers are here, we have to get to the point where if it's the same job, man or woman, you get paid the same amount. Wouldn't you say that that's got to happen?
Well, we are, but there's different demands on men and women. So men and women going into the same job, we don't know anything. And you pointed to the White House. I think it's despicable that they use this, but when they have this problem.
But you're talking about qualifications in here as well. I get that with qualifications.
Yeah. So we have to take that into account. More women take time out of the workplace than men do. That's not necessarily a bad thing at all. I just think that the market is reflecting that.
Okay. Now, you're right on that. We're going to come back and do this one of these days again because you're right. The employers have to be involved. The government shouldn't basically take care of everything here. But you're right. Bigger issue. Let's hope we at least are starting to get there. Sabrina Schaeffer, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. The new cry wolf in American politics, one candidate who came in unprepared and yells, "Fix," as in the fix is in. Next on The Hardline.